So I haven't become a scholar, but I can read it very nicely because I practice every day and I had faith in what Srila Prabhupada said. Do it and you'll be able to master it, right? So we should not expect that everything's gonna be smooth, that you're not gonna have opposition. I mean, when the one thing, aside from, this racism business, what I respect about the early disciples was that they had to undergo a lot of trial and tribulation. Because first of all, if you see the early pictures of how they were dressed, and you see them in the streets, they got spit on, they got put in jail. They had so much tribulation, just from being different from the society. So if you look at that example, how I really studied the history of ISKCON, I purchased a pack of 11 DVDs. It was in Vrindavan in the Prabhupada house. And it starts from the beginning of the movement up until Srila Prabhupada's leaving. And I wore those DVDs out because I wanted to understand what this whole movement went through, what it was about, what I can expect. So we have to be curious. Even when I first joined, I read every piece of literature I could find within the movement that was written, like all the old, I was reading everything, old back to Godheads. They weren't as fancy as they are now. So I just investigated as much as I could so I could understand this whole movement. So we have to understand, and as you said in history, any saint, they were always persecuted. The Christians were persecuted because they were believing in God, right? So we cannot expect, this is a material world, this is the world of, death and darkness. And sometimes we cannot be comfortable. We cannot expect this is gonna be a comfortable life. I'm just gonna sail through, no. I was going to speak about when the troubles that my Guru Maharaj used to have. We used to see. At one point, my Guru Maharaj was kind of like a sharp dresser. He liked to dress. I get that from him. And so what he did was, because there was so much going on in ISKCON, he didn't, because he's very much in love with Srila Prabhupada, he didn't exactly move away from ISKCON. He was still a little bit there, but he created another organization so he could preach in the African American, Black American community and draw us into the movement because he saw there weren't any. So in order for him to do that, he dressed in African attire. He was, just doing a little bit different, but he didn't water down the philosophy at all. If that was true, we would not be in the movement now, right? But he preached mostly to the middle class African Americans. Because he tried with, like maybe some of the other classes, who weren't, with them, all you can do is you can just give them prasadam, which he did because he opened a restaurant. But he wanted to preach also to the middle class, doctors, lawyers, whatever, and he was successful in that. But the way he was dressing, he got highly criticized by the ISKCON leaders. I mean, they were on his case like anything. In fact, there was one particular Maharaj who criticized him so much, we all got angry. But he would tell us, he told us to stay out of it. It's none of your business. What happens between me and my godbrother. Because we were talking amongst each other, how dare they do that, blah, blah, blah. We were like frizzled. But he quieted us. He said, no. He said, that's not the right mood. Because it's not going to bring any good. And even though this person, so he told us, don't do it. Don't criticize at all. Don't have a bad attitude. Because it means he was saving us from being offensive. And that wouldn't help our Bhakti Lata Beach. You know, so he was always protective of us in that way. He was teaching us how to tolerate those things that are gonna come that, you know, may disturb you. So they were, the governing body, I'm going back, was telling him to, they had a meeting with him to stop dressing the way he was dressing. And also he used to carry this stick, you know that one, the cane with the string head on it, which was carved by his uncle, and it was a gift to him, and they told him, you know, put that away, don't carry that anymore. I mean, they told him so many things, you know, but he did. And you'll find that when you become humble and your faith in Krishna is strong, Krishna takes care. You know, I mean, you don't have to fight for yourself. I even, you know, like, there's no reason to, like, fight for your rights or fight for your respect or fight for your, because Krishna knows whatever's going on. So you have to depend on Krishna. He sees the situation. And I found that, so look, even though they criticized my Guru so much, just see his fame was still spreading and it's still there. There's not one person, and also when I'm listening to any class, whether it's in Los Angeles, whether it's in India, whether it's in Mayapur, they always mention him. They talk about his books, and Bhakti Swami said this, and Bhakti Swami did this, and the spiritual word. You see? So, Krishna fights for you. And when you're humble, it's, even in the Bible it says the meek shall inherit the earth. It doesn't mean you have to be like a punching bag, or that when things go wrong or something happens to you that's not right, that you don't try to report it to whoever's in charge, or, you know, like take some kind of action, but not in the mood of, I want to get revenge. You know, I want to, that's a material thinking. And this subject came up before, because even when you see Haridas Thakur, right? He was beaten in the marketplaces. But what was his mood? Oh, and even those soldiers told him, if you don't die, what's going to happen to us? Isn't it? And he was like, okay, if you want me to die, I'll die. But he didn't die, you know, but at least for them, his concern was for them, not himself. And my Guru was just like that. He was more concerned. He would tell us, selfishness always brings weakness in your spiritual life. We have to be selfless. Think, what did he say? Think, don't think less of yourself, but think of yourself less. So we're not trying to be in the front. You know, we're just, it's me. I like being in the background. I don't mind, but I'm being pushed. Gurudev was pushing me. And I'm like, no, Gurudev. He's like, yes. You know, like even when I first came in the movement, I always would tell him, I feel like you're pulling me, and I'm on my heels, I'm like pulling back, you know. But he was always pushing me, and I still feel it, you know, and it's good. So like that, you just have to be, you know, tolerant for the things that you know that you're gonna have to deal with. But you have to have a strong faith in Krishna. You have to have a strong faith in your spiritual master. And also, when you have issues or problems, please go to him. Whatever it is. That's why you took him. Because he's been through so much. You know, so you have to take his direction and take his advice to heart. And unfortunately, some disciples don't. They disagree with the spiritual master. You know? But he's here to take us back to God. That's his service, and he's serious about it. You know, and I always tell about this. I already told it before. You might have heard it, but I was looking at this cartoon, and Krishna he had one Prabhu by his Sikha, And he was saying to the Prabhu, you started this movement, you started this process, and you have to see it through. And he was dragging him by his seat. And that's Krishna's mood, actually. He doesn't let you go. And neither does the spiritual master. Once he takes charge, it's serious. It's like in the Gita, when Arjuna was, still, trying to be friends with Krishna. And given all these arguments, trying to be like, and it's not that they weren't cogent, that they weren't okay, like, yes, these things will happen. And to me, it seemed like, he's representing living entities, and he forgot who's in charge, So then he finally stopped, thinking he knew all the answers, and surrendered. It's in front of me, 2:7, right? He said, okay, I surrender. I'm bewildered by everything that's going on. I don't know what to do. He finally said it, And then after that, their relationship could change, because then Krishna felt like, okay, now he's willing to listen. He's just not seeing me as a friend. He's giving me the position of his spiritual master, right? And even after Arjuna surrendered, still if you read some verses after that, he's still in a little bit of a, doubt. So the spiritual master is there to answer our doubts. And we have to feel safe coming to the spiritual master with our doubts, because we'll have them, it's like, so that's why we need a spiritual master. We need, because we don't really know what to do. If we did, we wouldn't be in messes that we get in. We have to have someone who can tell us. Anything else? Tanagri, until he left his body. No, it wasn't. Oh, he would say, when he would go away, I don't want all of you to be in the same consciousness when I come back. He wanted to see some elevation. And unfortunately, some of my God family are still in that same consciousness, in terms of being in a black body. But we have to move forward. I'll just get into that aspect, because if you read Prabhupada's books, if you really study them, then you can understand whatever you're going through in this lifetime. Maybe you did that to somebody, because we can't see ourselves as victims. We're not victims. If you take that victim mentality, you're going to maintain it. So we are not victims. And you don't have to feel like somebody's persecuting you and this and that, There's a reason behind it. And that's the aspect that's missing from my community. Why is that happening? And in the years that there have been so many type of movements to try to eliminate racism, it never happens, because we're in the material world. You have to change your consciousness. The world is not going to change for you, is it? It's not going to change for you. You change. Then you'll make progress. And get out of the body identification. And also, I was hearing a lecture. This is good about hearing. Everybody should hear all the time. Just hear. Even if you don't remember everything, you'll remember some of it. Some of it sinks in. And I had the realization before I came here, I was in India, but I heard, was it yesterday or today, about how we need to stop thinking about being separate from someone else. Do you know what I mean? It's sometimes we have this separatist type of mood, like you only see, okay, say you go into a group and no one is there from your country, and the minute you see somebody from your country, what do you think? Oh, Mauritian, or African American, And even I will say that sometimes if someone from like my background, African American, when they see me, they're like, oh, an African American, because that's how they identify, But fortunately for me, one thing that helps me is the fact that I grew up in the military and I was in all kinds of cultures, you know. But even that, being in the movement, we need to think of ourselves as part of a whole, not separate, because then we create separatism. It's one small experience I had, and I've repeated this, but it's good to be repeated because it was a really nice realization for me to move beyond where I'm at. I was, you know, because I've been down and there's so many people coming, Indian-bodied people coming to the temple, it's packed. And sometimes as Westerners we think, oh, it's such a moderation, it's getting so crowded in here. It's not like it used to be, it was just, you know, small group, blah, 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 we can't go in the temple. And so one day I was coming to the temple and it was packed. And I said, no, I want to go to the temple. So I met one Russian Mataji and I know her, she was like, you can't get in there, it's packed. And then I started thinking, these persons, this is their country, okay, it's India, it's their country, number one, and why wouldn't they be coming, okay? Number two, it's because we're thinking of ourselves as separate from what they want. We're supposed to be wanting the same thing. And that we are trying to be separate. We don't want to come to the temple. And why are we here? Anyway, why are we here? We want to come to the temple. I want to see Krishna Balaram. I want to see Radharani. I want to see Gauranitai. I want to see Prabhupada. So because you're thinking that you're separate, you don't want to come. You don't want to go through the austerity. To meet those persons who have so much enthusiasm, I mean, the doors open and they like flowing like the river, you know? And yes, it's difficult. But like I said, difficulty is going to be there. How much do you want it? Who's that woman that stepped on Lord Chaitanya? She wasn't paying attention to anything. She was like, I'm climbing up here because I want to see Lord Chaitanya. And what did Lord Chaitanya do when his disciples was trying to get her down? He said, leave her. We should have so much enthusiasm. That's how we should see it. You know? I remember one time I had made something. One thing is nice about the deities in Vrindavan. If you're a second initiate, you can make something and bring it to the altar and they'll put it right at the feet of the Lord. So I had made a cake. So I had planned everything. I said, okay, I'm gonna go at a time when there's not a lot of people to bring the cake. So I went early, before it opened at 4. I was there around, I'll say 3:30, 20, you know, and it was empty. I was like, great. So I stood at the altar, put the cake on the front there. I was like, okay, this is good. So I was standing there, and the closer it got to 4, the more people started coming up. And then I happened to turn around to look at the front gate, and I was like, oh my God, here they come. I mean, it was like, I mean, it filled up so fast. It got packed, and I knew it was going to happen. But I was at the very front of the altar, and I knew I was going to get smushed. But I was willing to undergo that austerity because you can't approach the Lord without austerity. Brahma had to do tapasya. So don't expect a good ride. And also try to cultivate the mood that we're all in this together. We're all in this together. We all want to see the Lord at some point. Is it?
Yes,
Is that okay?
yes, ma'am.
Any other
Thank you
questions?
so much.
So when he was going through his process of illness, I couldn't go up there to be there. You know, because I knew that his mood was, he would probably ask me, why are you here? You know, I gave you the responsibility of deities and you're coming running up here, you know, and my relationship with Bhakti Maharaj was on a level that I cannot understand because it wasn't always physical, it was always like he would come in my dreams, and he's come in my dreams so many times. And he's the one that created my my faith in Krishna, because sometimes I would have a dream with him and the deities were there. It was me, him, and Radha Damodara. I had so many, I can't tell you, so many instances where it wasn't his physical presence. It was always on some other kind of level that I, couldn't really, understand, like, and it started when I first started coming around, and he came in my dream and told me about bowing down, because I wasn't. And he just told me why. He explained to me. And then of course I did it, and I don't know, like, so when he was leaving, I was doing my service, and I only went up there one time to do a soft care time with another devotee. But even up to his leaving, I didn't go back up there. And everybody was up there. People came from all over the world, all over the US, even all of us who were, there in the temple. So, but when he left his body, they came down through the woods, because his house was way up top of the hill. And the front road came down into the main road, and the Pitanagri road was down. But he came, but there was a lot of woods. It was 350 acres of farmland. So they brought his body down through the woods with those torches, that you use, those torches, and it was actually most of the men were carrying his body, but most of the women were the ones, because I'll tell you, he had strong spiritual warriors, okay? And he didn't, he wasn't prejudiced about the work that the women could do. He gave us whatever we could do. It wasn't about the body, right? And I think that's one of the reasons he made me hit Pujari, because he was making a statement. So the women were carrying, and they brought his body down into the temple. And then they brought his body up to the altar. I was on the altar. And they gave me a garland to put on Guru Maharaj's body. I have that picture. I chased down the photographer. And I have that picture. And when I see that picture, I know that Guru Maharaj did that for me, because I stayed on the altar and didn't come running up there. And he gave me the privilege of putting the garment on his body. So we had the type of relationship that, for me, went beyond his body. So, and even though, yes, we feel very heartbroken when the spiritual master leaves this body, but if we are only attached to the body, we won't be determined to go on. If we were only attached to his outside person, and not what he's given us, and not how our relationship should be, that he's our eternal spiritual master, regardless of whether his body is here or not here. And this is, for me, has what kept me going, just because I know that he's supporting me. I know it, and I feel like I want him to be pleased with me, and so I'm following his instructions. And he only gave me like short little sentences. He didn't give me like a whole world of instructions. He just gave me small statements that I meditate on. One of them, there's two that I particularly remember. When I first was coming to the Institute, I was fighting with the devotees. Like anything was too much for me. I was like, I'm not going to become a devotee. I'm getting out of here. And one time I was coming out and he was coming. So I was going out the gate, I made the right turn, and he was coming behind me, and he calls me, and he says, so what's your problem? Is it your enemies or your friends? And I meditated on that, because we know in the movement there's no enemies and no friends. If we're doing enemies and friends, we have to come to a higher consciousness, because there's no enemies and friends. And then the next one was, because most of the time for me, I'm introvert. I like to read. I stay in my room. I don't mind being alone. I'm like okay with it, right? I took a lot of space. And he said to me one time, he said, and he was trying to bring me closer. You know, he wanted me to have a relationship. I'll tell the third one, but after this one. So he just said to me, so you don't share yourself much, do you? You know, like, what's your problem? The Bhakti movement. That one I've kept. And then the third one, which was really nice, I liked it. Even when he was sick, I was making another outfit. This is about the third or fourth outfit I had made for him. I was supposed to be working on it, but I was dragging my feet, and I think the consciousness was, well, he's not going to need the suit, so why I have to, you know, like rush through it, you know. So he told, and Fragilita told me this story, because she was there. She said, he said, call Kartamisha. I want her to come up here. He said, he told Bhakti to go there. And he was always doing that to me. He had to pull me all the time. Where's Kartamisha? Where is she? You know, because I was always in my room. So then I went up there. And what he told Bhakti before I came, just watch. He's going to make excuses why it's not ready. Right. So I went up there, and I was going in a humble mood, believe me. So I went up there, and he said, so why haven't you finished my soup? What's the problem? And then I said, I'm really sorry, Mauritius. I know I've been dragging my feet. I'll try to finish it, blah, blah, blah. You know, which I did finish it. But so then after I left, I was like, okay, let me get started on this and finish it. Then Fragilita told me that when I left, he said, she spoiled my fun. I thought she was going to defend herself. You know, so he was just trying to bring me closer, you know, to him, you know, like that. Because that was my usual mood to argue, you know, to say, you know, well, why, you know. But he thought I was going to give him at least that privilege of having some fun, you know, with me. You know, so it's like that, you know. So, you know, like, and so in terms of relationships, you know, like, you have to feel like he's there. Yes, you have to have a grieving period. We can't deny that. We can't act like we don't have feelings. You know? But also understand that on the other end of it, he's going back to Godhead. And also that Guru said, I'll be more present when I leave my body. And he has been for me so much. You know, and I want to represent him nicely. And I have to say the radio program was really nice. Thank you. It was very nice. Because I felt like I was pleasing Bhakti. I felt it. I was so happy when I left. Even though it was my first time ever being on the radio, I was nervous as anything. I was like, I've never been on the radio. What am I going to say? You know? But it just flowed because Gurudev gave me that power. We can't do anything without Krishna and Guru. We can't do anything on our own. We have to understand whatever power is given to us is coming through them. We're not the doer at all. We're the instruments. And we just have to understand that and understand we're not the center. You know, that when we are following the instructions, the spiritual master and Krishna are pleased. So yes, it's a difficult time. But if you're only attached to the body, then you'll move away. You won't stick. But if you understand that he's your eternal father, your eternal spiritual master, and that there's a dimension beyond the physical, and that he's also seeing you and seeing your progress and supporting you still, but not the way that we're used to. Is that okay?
Yeah.
stay off the phone. He's off. You know, he said one time, I went to an initiation that he did at the Madame Mohan, Damodara. He said that if you're on the phone and you're trying to chant, you're not his disciple. That's heavy, but it's true. He said that.
11 offense.
Huh?
11 offense.
Yes. Yes. We have to have the 11th offense now with all these cell phones. You have to put it on the sheet because it's terrible. It's like it's calling you. When I go to the temple, I leave the phone at home. And I go to the temple to chant. No distractions. I don't care who's calling. There's no emergency. You know? So we have to develop a distance from the cell phone. I don't care what the message is, especially when you're chanting. Because you can't do that, be connected to the phone and be connected to Krishna at the same time. We're just telling Krishna, you come second. We just check these messages first. You're in the middle of calling him, and then you're like, oh, let me check. You can't do that. So follow his instructions. You know Maharaj is strict. He's kind, but he's also strict. And he expects a lot from his disciples. You know? He's very sweet, but he can also be very heavy and hit you with the truth. You know, and you have to be willing to accept it. I remember one time my Maharaj was giving me he was like heavy. And then after that, I was like whining. Like, he never sees anything. He never says anything about what I am doing. He's always talking about what I'm not doing. You know? That's my whining, you know. But we have to be, but Fajaliya, she can take it. You can tell her anything. She doesn't get upset. But I was like, stopping, you know. But, you know. So, you know, like this, be the kind of disciple that you think you want. Be disciplined. Be disciplined, you know. Follow the instructions, serve him nicely. It's not that you have to be perfect, because if we were perfect, we wouldn't be here. And I understand, I heard a class, or did I read it somewhere, where you don't have to be perfect to go back to the spiritual world. Because, you know, there's a training, you get a training before you go to a Gurukula. There's a training period, so you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be near perfect. You know? So he knows, you know, that you want, and he knows all of your problems, I'm sure. You know, so just be sincere and serve him nicely and honor him nicely and hear him all the time, what he's saying, what he's speaking. You know, because treasure this time. Treasure the time that you're having with him. Okay?
This one is for the Mataji and for me. Oh,
Yes, for sure.
thank you.
Yes, just out of the, fresh out of the oven.
For me.
I already So there's more. Anybody want more cake, you can let us know, there's enough.